Welcome to Byte-Sized Tech, where we blend casual conversations with insightful discussions on the latest in technology and gadgets.
That's some fun.
Today, we're going to do a deep dive on some fascinating cybersecurity stories from the past year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we've got a whole stack of ThreatWire reports here detailing some pretty wild stuff.
Like what?
Like hackers trying to take down a crucial anonymity network and a stealthy iPhone update that's stirring up the digital forensics world.
Oh, wow. Yeah, those are some pretty big headlines.
So let's unpack all of this, starting with the attempted takedown of the Tor network.
Okay.
So you probably know that Tor is all about anonymous browsing.
Right.
Journalists, activists, anyone who needs that extra layer of privacy relies on it.
Yep.
But it turns out a group calling themselves Root Monster wasn't too keen on this whole anonymity thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. And their approach was surprisingly disruptive.
Oh, really? How so?
So instead of going after the Tor network directly,
Okay.
they exploited a weakness in the way online abuse is reported. They basically flooded hosting providers with bogus complaints
Oh, wow.
and spoofed IP addresses to make it look like Tor users were the bad guys.
That's pretty clever.
It's malicious?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a clever way to try to get legitimate Tor infrastructure blocked.
So like calling in a fake fire alarm to clear out a building.
Exactly. But in this case, the building is a network used for secure communication.
Right.
So did this Root Monster scheme actually work?
Thankfully, no.
Okay, good.
Security researchers like Andrew Morris from Gray Noise.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, they were quick to spot the unusual activity and figure out what Root Monster was up to.
That's a relief.
They worked with hosting providers to identify the fake reports and keep the Tor network running.
That's great news. It really makes you appreciate the work that these cybersecurity pros do behind the scenes, constantly battling these digital gremlins.
Yeah, they're the unsung heroes of the internet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this whole incident raises a bigger question in an age of data breaches and online tracking.
Yeah.
How much do we actually value online anonymity?
That's a good question.
I mean, Tor might not be for everyone,
Hmm.
but it represents a fundamental right to privacy and freedom of expression online.
Right.
When those are under attack, it impacts all of us.
For sure.
All right, let's shift gears from global networks to something a little closer to home, our iPhones.
Okay.
Remember that secret iOS update that made headlines a while back?
Oh, yeah. I think I remember that.
So it turns out iPhones now automatically reboot after being unlocked for 4 days.
Really?
And it wipes something called a after first unlock state, or AFU for short.
AFU.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, what is that exactly?
So imagine you lose your iPhone.
Okay.
Someone finds it, tries to crack the passcode.
Mm-hmm.
With this update after 4 days, poof. That crucial data investigators use for forensic analysis is gone.
So it's kind of like a self-destruct sequence for your phone's temporary memory?
Exactly.
Interesting.
So good news for those of us prone to misplacing our phones.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe not so great for digital forensics experts.
Yeah.
Matthew Green, a cryptographer and professor, pointed out how this change throws a wrench in investigations.
Makes sense.
It enhances security for everyday users,
Yeah.
but it also makes it harder to, say, recover evidence from a stolen phone or analyze a device involved in a crime.
Oh, I see.
It's a tricky situation. You've got improved security for the average person,
Yeah.
but potential setbacks for law enforcement and digital forensics.
Right. It's a trade-off.
Yeah. Would you be willing to trade a bit of forensic accessibility for enhanced personal security on your phone?
That's a tough call.
It is. It really highlights how technology forces us to grapple with these complex trade-offs between security, privacy, and the needs of law enforcement.
Absolutely.
And this is a debate that's only going to intensify as technology evolves.
For sure.
Speaking of complex debates, let's talk about the showdown between Russia and one of the biggest tech giants out there, Google.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
The battle over censorship, a case where the lines between technology, politics, and free speech get very blurry.
It's a messy situation.
So to catch everyone up, this whole saga started a while back when YouTube, which is owned by Google,
Right.
decided to block certain Russian state media channels like Zero TV.
Okay.
This was back in 2020, and, well, Russia didn't exactly take kindly to it.
I can imagine.
They have some pretty strict laws about what content is allowed online,
Yeah.
and they view this as censorship.
Right.
Now, what's interesting is that Russia didn't go after YouTube directly.
Mm-hmm.
They decided to target its parent company, Google.
Oh, wow.
We're talking about fines in the trillions of rubles, something like 20 billion US dollars.
That's a hefty price tag.
It is a hefty price tag for not playing by the rules.
Yeah.
But this isn't just about one company in one country, right?
I don't think so.
It raises broader questions about how tech companies navigate these global conflicts. I
Exactly.
mean, on one hand, these companies want to operate globally and reach as many users as possible.
Of course.
But on the other hand, they have to comply with local laws, even if those laws conflict with their own principles or with international norms.
It's a real dilemma.
It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube, where every twist has unintended consequences.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Makes you wonder how these companies will balance their commitment to free speech with the pressure to comply with increasingly restrictive internet regulations around the world.
It's a delicate balancing act for sure.
One that we'll be seeing play out more and more in the years to come.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the big players either.
Right.
It's about how these decisions impact our access to information and the future of the open internet as we know it.
It's a lot to chew on.
It is.
But before we get lost in the geopolitical weeds, let's zoom in on a specific technical vulnerability.
Okay.
This one popped up in Cisco's ultra-reliable wireless backhaul software,
Oh, right.
which, for those who aren't networking gurus, is basically a system that helps connect different parts of a wireless network.
Got it.
This vulnerability, officially known as CVE 2024-2418, is a bit of a nail-biter.
Why is that?
It received the highest possible CVSS score of 10.
A 10.
A 10. That sounds like we're talking DEFCON 1 levels of seriousness.
Yeah, that's pretty serious. What exactly makes this vulnerability so dangerous?
It all boils down to something called improper input validation.
Okay.
Essentially, the software wasn't properly checking the data it received.
I see.
Software's like a picky eater. It needs data in a very specific format.
Right.
If someone tries to sneak in something unexpected, well, things can go haywire.
So it's kind of like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly. The software freaks out because it doesn't know what to do with this unexpected input.
And in this case, the freakout could allow an attacker to execute commands on the system,
Oh, no.
potentially giving them complete control.
So it's like leaving a back door wide open in your network, just begging for someone to exploit it.
Pretty much.
Yikes. So what happened? Did Cisco manage to slam that back door shut?
Thankfully, yes, they released a patch to fix the vulnerability.
That's it.
But it does highlight a broader issue in software development.
What's that?
You see, the ideal scenario is to build security into the very foundation of software,
Okay.
rather than trying to patch vulnerabilities after they've been discovered.
So it's like building a house with a solid foundation and secure walls,
Exactly.
rather than realizing halfway through that you forgot to put in a door.
That's a good way to put it.
So how do we get developers to think more about secure by design?
Well, it's a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
Organizations like CISA and the FBI are pushing for initiatives to promote secure coding practices, thorough testing, and a culture of security awareness throughout the software development lifecycle.
So shifting from a reactive whack-a-mole approach to a more proactive, preventative mindset.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. But let's be real, most of us aren't software developers.
True.
What can the average person do to protect themselves from these digital landmines?
That's a great question, and it's something we all need to think about. We've covered a lot of ground today, from attacks on anonymity networks to hidden phone updates and global tech battles.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind.
It's clear that cybersecurity is a dynamic and ever-evolving field.
Indeed. And it's one that's only going to become more important as technology continues to advance and play an even greater role in our lives.
Absolutely. So what's the biggest takeaway for our listeners today?
I'd say it's this: cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
I agree.
It's not just about technical expertise.
Right.
It's about awareness vigilance and taking simple steps to protect yourself and your data.
Great point. We can't just rely on tech companies or governments to keep us safe.
Absolutely. We all have a role to play in securing the digital world.
And by staying informed and engaging in these conversations, we can collectively work towards a safer and more secure online environment.
Well said.
Yeah, it seems like cybersecurity is becoming more and more relevant to our everyday lives.
Absolutely. It's not just about protecting big corporations or government agencies anymore. It affects all of us. And you know what? This whole Cisco vulnerability really got me thinking. Improper input validation. It sounds so basic. You'd think developers would catch that, right?
You'd think so, but the reality is software development is incredibly complex. There are often millions of lines of code.
Wow.
It's easy for mistakes to slip through, especially when deadlines are tight.
So it's kind of like a typo in a book, except this typo can let hackers take over your entire system.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, and that's why those secure by design initiatives are so important.
Right.
It's about building security into the very foundation of the software.
Like making sure the house is built on solid ground before you even start decorating.
Exactly.
Makes sense. But let's be real. For the average person who isn't a coder, it can feel overwhelming to keep up with all these cybersecurity threats.
Yeah.
What can we do to protect ourselves?
That's a great question, and it's one we hear all the time. The good news is that there are a few simple things everyone can do to improve their security.
Okay, hit me with some practical tips.
First and foremost, strong passwords are crucial.
Okay.
Use a password manager if you can. And make sure each password is unique. Don't reuse the same one for multiple accounts.
I know it's tempting to use password 123 for everything,
Right.
but that's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. And be wary of phishing emails.
Oh yeah, those are tricky.
Don't click on links or open attachments from senders you don't recognize.
Okay.
If something seems suspicious, it probably is.
So basically channel your inner skeptic when it comes to your inbox.
Exactly. And keep your software up to date.
Right.
Those updates often include important security patches.
Okay, so strong passwords, watch out for phishing, and update everything. What else?
Consider using a VPN, especially when you're on public Wi-Fi networks.
Oh, good point.
It adds an extra layer of encryption to your internet connection, making it harder for snoopers to intercept your data.
I always feel a little uneasy using public Wi-Fi, knowing that anyone could be lurking.
It's definitely a good idea to be cautious and finally enable two-factor authentication whenever possible. It adds an extra layer of security to your accounts, making it much harder for hackers to gain access, even if they do get your password.
So basically make it as difficult as possible for the bad guys. I like it.
Exactly. It's all about creating multiple layers of defense. No single measure is foolproof.
Right.
But by taking these steps, you can significantly reduce your risk.
You know, this conversation has been really insightful. It's one thing to read headlines about cybersecurity threats, but it's another to break them down and understand the real-world implications.
I agree. And what's particularly interesting is how these incidents often reveal broader trends in technology and society.
Like how the iPhone update shows the tension between individual privacy and law enforcement's need for access to data.
Exactly.
Sure.
Or how the Google-Russia conflict highlights the challenges of navigating censorship laws in a globalized digital world.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It is.
Technology is never just about the technology itself.
Right.
It's about the people using it,
Right.
the laws governing it, and the ethical dilemmas it creates.
Well said. And that's why it's so important to stay informed and have these conversations. The more we understand about these issues, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the increasingly complex digital landscape.
So it's not just about protecting our devices, it's about protecting our privacy, our freedom, and even our democracy in the digital age.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, it's amazing how much we rely on technology these days without really thinking about the security implications.
I know, right?
I mean, we trust these systems with our personal information, our finances, our communication, even our physical safety in some cases.
It's true. We often take for granted how much our lives are intertwined with digital systems, and with that comes a responsibility to understand the risks and take steps to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. It's like driving a car.
Oh, yeah.
You don't need to be a mechanic to know how to drive safely,
Yeah.
but you do need to understand the basic rules of the road and be aware of potential hazards.
That's a great analogy. And just like with driving, the more you practice safe cybersecurity habits, the more they become second nature.
All right, so we've talked about some pretty complex cybersecurity issues today, but ultimately it boils down to a few key takeaways.
What are those?
First, strong passwords are a must-know more, password 123, or using your birthday.
Right.
Use a password manager if you can, and make sure each password is unique.
Couldn't agree more. It's the foundation of good cybersecurity hygiene.
Second, be wary of phishing emails, those sneaky messages that try to trick you into giving away your personal information. If something seems fishy, it probably is.
Always double-check the sender's address and hover over links before you click them, and never ever give out your passwords or financial information over email.
And finally, keep your software updated. Those updates might seem annoying, but they often include crucial security patches that can protect you from known vulnerabilities.
It's like getting a flu shot for your devices. It helps keep those nasty digital viruses at bay.
So there you have it, folks. 3 simple but effective steps to improve your cybersecurity posture.
And remember, cybersecurity is an ongoing process. It's not a one-time fix. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay safe out there.
Well said. It's been a great discussion. Thanks for joining us on this bite-sized tech deep dive.
It's been a pleasure as always.
And for all you listeners out there, Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more fun and informative tech discussions.
Until next time, stay secure.
That's a wrap.